Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome back to another week of predictions. This last weekend was crazy. Tons of crazy games, upsets, and we're back here with another week. We're going to start here with Arizona versus Kansas State. I have Arizona winning. I know the spread says -7, but I think Arizona is stronger, more powerful. We saw what happened last weekend with Kansas State and Tulane. I know Tulane's a good program, but that was too close for comfort for Kansas State. I think Arizona's going to come in here and be a force to be reckoned with this season. I have Arizona winning the Big 12. I think they're going to come in here and show, since last year they had a rough start of the season and they really didn't have a chance to make it, but they had a very strong ending, and I think this year they're going to come out and they're going to be in the 12-man playoff. Next we have is Alabama versus Wisconsin. I have it more of a low-scoring game. Wisconsin's a hit-and-miss program for me. We don't really know what they have to offer this season, but I do think they're going to try to hold their own with Alabama in the first half, which is why I think it's going to be like 14-ish points, and then Alabama's going to take control. And then they're going to be just like last week where they just kind of just start running up the score. So I have a 35-14. I would probably cover the spread. I would be surprised, though, if Wisconsin comes out stronger than ever at home and makes it a better game. But I do not think that would be a most viable pick for this week. Next, we have another slow game. We have Oklahoma State versus Tulsa. Oklahoma State came off an OT game last week. Very close. I had Arkansas winning. Most of the game, I was like, I knew it. Arkansas is just going to take it to town. But then Oklahoma State came back, proved me wrong, and came out and win in overtime. But I don't think this is going to be a hard week. 31-7. Next, we have our first upset. Alarm bells ringing. We have South Carolina versus LSU. LSU has not been performing the way I think they should be, and that's why I think South Carolina is going to come in with the dub. They're going to win just barely. Probably a last-minute field goal, last-minute drive, 31-28. I'm sorry, LSU, this just isn't your year. I think next year you will have a better opportunity. Next noon game, we have Arkansas State and Michigan. Michigan just coming out of a hard loss against Texas. Absolute dogged. I didn't think it was going to be that bad of a beating. I had Texas winning, but I thought Michigan was going to hold their own. And if you check out the video above, we can really go into the hopes for Michigan coming in this following season. But I don't think this is going to be a hard game. 52-3. I think they're going to cover the spread easily, and they're going to try to bounce back from that horrible, horrible performance against Texas. Saturday, 12:45 SEC time. We have Missouri versus Boston College. Welcome to the rankings, Boston College, but you're going to be out of here just as fast as you entered. I think Missouri's going to handle business on this game. I think Boston College isn't as good as 24 is saying. They did perform against a ranked opponent, and they are rewarded for it. So I do think Missouri's going to come out, dominate, show that they mean business this year. I have Missouri as one of my favorites for the SEC title game. I don't think they're going to win, and they might not even make the title game, but that's my pick. I have Missouri. I know they're kind of like the Ole Miss of the SEC, the Tennessee, where they're struggling to get over that hump between like Alabama and Georgia, and it's just hard, especially with those two elite programs. And then you add Texas to the mix. And I know there's Oklahoma, but I don't think Oklahoma is very good this year. As we can see in the first 2 weeks, there's been some cracks in the armor. Next, we have another upset, 3:30, Oregon State versus Oregon. Oregon State has something to prove. They only play a few Power 5 teams this season, and if they want to see the 12-man playoff, because they don't have a championship, and if they do have a championship, it's not guaranteed. It's not a guaranteed spot. Only the 4 Power 4s and then the group of 5 teams. So I think Oregon State has something to prove. If they could beat Oregon, if they can win all of their games, beat Oregon, go 12-0, I think that they could find their way into one of those spots, and I think they have something to prove. I know they lost their quarterback due to the transfer portal, but I think Oregon State still has a pretty solid case. And Oregon, last week against Boise, I didn't realize Boise could run that many points on a Power 5 team. So I think Oregon State can have an opportunity here. I have it 35-28. I know the spread says -14, but the spread last week had Oregon dominating Boise as well. Next Saturday, 3:30, we have another slow game. Miami, welcome to the top 10, versus Ball State. I don't think they're going to score. 60-0, easy. Next upset, alarm bells ringing. After that poor performance by Oklahoma last week against Houston, I don't think that they have a chance to compete. I have them in a worrisome spot. They have one of the toughest schedules in college football right now, and Tulane is no softie. I know they had a hard time against Kansas. I had Tulane winning that game. They should have won that game. They just couldn't finish. But I think this week they're going to bounce back. They're going to come out swinging because they want to be that group of 5 team to make it. They don't want to be left out like last year when Liberty went on to play Oregon. I think Tulane will be that team to be in there. I know Northern Illinois right now is the highest ranking group of 5 team, but I don't think it's going to last very long. So I have Tulane winning this 24-21. OU, I'm sorry, your season is just not looking too bright, especially even if you win this game, you have 3 more ranked opponents. And that being said, I think they're just going to lose this game. They're not as good as they were last year. Next game, 3:30 in Purdue, upset bells ringing. This is the upset week. I have Purdue barely etching a win against Notre Dame. Notre Dame last week against Northern Illinois, that was embarrassing. Northern Illinois was running down Notre Dame's throat. I think Purdue can handle business. I think it's going to be a close one. I know Notre Dame's going to try to bounce it back, but I think Notre Dame, this isn't your year either. I think you should join a conference because right now your independence is not looking good because at least for some of these teams that have lost their first couple weeks, then they still have a chance. They can win out their conference, et cetera, et cetera. You can't afford to lose another game. And I think this is the week where the nail in the coffin. You're going to go 10-2, maybe even you play USC later this year. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think Purdue's going to win this game 21-20. Next slow game, we have Utah versus Utah State. This game could be closer. It's a rivalry game, but I don't think it will be. Utah State isn't very good. It's not like Iowa State where they're like very entrenched in their football. So I think they're going to win 45-10 on this one. It's going to be kind of a slow game. Next 6:30 game, we have Wake Forest versus Ole Miss. This is going to be another slow one. Ole Miss, welcome to the top 5. 50-14 is my pick for this week. I just don't think Wake Forest has it in them. I know they had a good showing for the first couple weeks, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Wake Forest this isn't their year. Next slow game, 60-3, Texas versus UTSA at 7 o'clock. I would just skip this game. I just don't think UTSA is going to really compete. Texas is going to be on all autopilot this game. They're going to be on all autopilot this game. So I don't think it's going to be worth watching. I think we can cover the -34. The 63.5, I think it's a little too high because unless UTSA is scoring, I don't think Texas is going to be scoring 63 points on themselves. So I wouldn't even try to bet on that one. Next SEC matchup, we have Kentucky versus Georgia. This could have been a good game, but I just don't think Kentucky can compete on this level right now. I think they're in the rebuilding stage, but it doesn't look like it. They almost look like they're trying to compete for the playoff spot, but they just don't have the players or the money to compete at Georgia's level. So I think Georgia's going to win this easily, 42-6. They're going to dominate most of the game. There's going to be no contest. And I almost had Kentucky scoring like 12, 14 points, but then I was like, but they're playing against one of the best teams in the league, and Georgia isn't slowing down anytime soon. Next 7:30 game, we have UNI versus the Huskers. There's no spread on this one. Northern Iowa is a force to be reckoned with, and that's no bias on my part for being a Hawkeye fan, but I do think they're a force to be reckoned with. But in this day and age, they're not as good. They're not getting their same recruits, especially in NIL. It's hard to get good talent that just doesn't transfer after 1 year. So I think Nebraska is coming out strong. They're in the top 25 now. They had a strong performance against Colorado. Multiple sacks, multiple interceptions. There was a pick 6. I think they're going to win this with ease, 49-0, especially since they're at home. I don't think there's going to be any doubt in anyone's mind that UNI is going to compete. Top 25 of the weekend. We have Tennessee versus Kent State. I don't think Kent State's going to be able to compete in this one. I have Tennessee 45-plus points. They might cover the -48. Just kind of depends on how Tennessee's decided to rotate their players in and out. I do think it's going to be like 30-something-0 at halftime, maybe even 40. And it just kind of depends on how they decide if they want to put their backups in right away or if they're going to keep running up the score going into the third quarter. Last pick of the weekend we have is Iowa versus the Troy Trojans. I always do an Iowa game even if they're not ranked. Welcome to the channel. I don't think Iowa's going to lose this one. Troy's not a very good team. Their program's very laughable. Iowa needs to bounce back, so I think Iowa needs to run up the score, build that confidence for their offense. They need to start throwing the ball more in this game, and not just run downhill football. They need to start practicing those routes, practicing that timing, because there was a lot of missed drops. As you saw last week, Iowa was struggling. They look great, and then they look bad. And I don't think it's a problem with necessarily the offensive coordinator. I think it's a problem with the fundamentals, and they need to get that timing down. They need to get those routes ran correctly. They need to get that ball out faster. And that's going to be it for this video. Please like and subscribe if you like this type of content. and I make much more content. I make videos, discussion videos about futures of these teams and different things like that. I also have a live stream on this channel of different games. Please check that out. I usually do that on the weekend, sometimes during the week, but that's going to be it. Peace.